That was our best 22 of this year's NAB AFL draft crop. We are back on draft night countdown. Not long now until the NAB AFL draft. Don't forget, we'll have all of that action tonight. Draft night live from 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Cal Toomey, Nat Edwards, Mitch Cleary and myself. We're very lucky to have our next guest in the studio, and that's Chris Davies, Port Adelaide's head of footy. Chris, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
You've got a massive hand at the draft tonight, 3 first-round picks. Firstly, you must be incredibly excited about what the future holds for your club with them.
Yeah, we are, obviously, with the potential to have Jackson Mead as well. So, pretty big couple of days for the club. Certainly a lot of excitement around our picks, and we're excited to take that group forward into 2020 season.
Who are you taking at pick 12, Chris?
Very good question. Look, the reality is, you know, as you guys have no doubt spoken about, it'll be interesting to see who gets through to that spot. I think that there's a few guys at the moment who are looking like they're potentially going to slide, and so we'll pick the best available player at that particular point.
Do you think it might end up a call between Will Day and Miles Bergman? Are those two guys who are in your thoughts at that spot?
Yeah, we've got probably 12 guys in our thoughts who potentially might get down there. Certainly Will and Miles are players that our guys know pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see who gets through to those picks. But right now we're confident we're going to have a good group of players come to our club. There
seems to be a bit of jockeying going on within the back end of that first round. It feels like Geelong, we had list manager Stephen Wells on the show a little bit earlier. It feels like Geelong with their selections at 14 and 17 and you guys at 16 and 18 probably all like the similar type of players and similar range of players. How much tactical thought goes into who you take first and second and third and what they might like as well?
Yeah, look, a fair bit. We put our order together probably a couple of weeks ago now, and then you start to think about, well, who is it that's going to get through to pick 16, pick 12 as well. Obviously, you want to make sure that you pick the best possible player you can, but at the same time, you do turn your mind to, well, who's going to slip through to those later picks. So it's something that the guys have put a whole heap of time into. We had a discussion, this morning to have a final sort of list meeting, and we've got a strategy now that we'll move forward with, but it'll be fascinating to see who slips through.
Looking at Cal's Phantom draft, he's got Sam De Conning, Josh Worrell, Harrison Jones all in that mix in the back end of the teens. Is that a need for you guys to get a key defender, especially considering we've just seen Dougal Howard go out through the trade period? Yeah,
I mean, not so much a need, but I think we are interested in all of those guys. Again, those players who can get onto your list as key position players are certainly of interest. But it will obviously be determined by who slips through on those early picks. And we want to, as I say, take the best possible player we can. But at the same time, you've got to have a real think about what you need and what your list needs at any point in time.
You had 3 first-round picks last year as well, and you got Connor Rozee, Xavier Dersmer and Zach Butters, who played a lot of senior footy in 2019. Now, all draftees develop at a different rate, but are you looking for ready-made guys that can come into the side and impact in 2020?
We'd like to think that the guys that we pick will have the potential to do that, but we're not coming in saying right now that we need to have guys who are capable of playing straight away. That's certainly not something that Ken's been pushing, and not something that, from a list perspective, we want to contemplate either. We want to get the best possible player who we think is going to help us in the short and long term, and whichever player that is, we'll obviously take at those picks.
Cal's voted Will Day as a potentially player with your first pick. That's pick 11, depending where it falls. He's a South Australian. Also plays across half-back. Is that a need for you guys or an interest, considering you've got Houston, who's also played wing, Rolly Bonner, Ryan Burton, Darcy Byrne-Jones? Is that a need for a half-back?
Not so much a need as much as someone like all the South Australian guys. They're under our nose, so we do a whole heap of work with Stevens, Gould, those types of guys as well. We've got interest in. Day is one that is a South Australian guy. We always, as I've said through the trade period as well, we're already always interested in the South Australian talent. Where they fall will be another thing.
Jackson Mead is an interesting one. You mentioned at the top of your chat, because you did some trade manoeuvring to make sure that a bid wouldn't come before your third selection, which was at 29, the trade with the Brisbane as well.
Yep.
Would you want to talk us through that? Who were you fearing was going to bid on him? Because now it looks like a bid might not come until a little bit later.
Yeah, well, look, there were multiple clubs who we think had interest in Jackson. Obviously, 29, we weren't willing to take the risk as much as anything, so we wanted to come in. Obviously, we had the potential to get up with Brisbane into that pick 16, which we thought was something that we were willing to do because we didn't want to take the chance of someone bidding on Jackson before our third pick.
Yep.
Talk us about the type of player, sorry, Cal, that the Port Adelaide fans will get with Jackson Mead.
Well, I mean, Jackson's obviously, a player who can win the ball himself, but also has the capability of impacting the scoreboard. So, has a potential to be an inside mid, but also you probably will start his career, I think, as one of those half forward types who can actually impact the scoreboard.
As part of that deal, you obviously gave away your future first-round pick. How much of that thinking was dictated to by the fact you've got Taj Schofield eligible for next year's father-son program? He's the son of Jared Schofield, obviously got a great history at the club and presently as well. But tell us about Taj and whether that did come into your thinking when you made that trade.
Look, absolutely, it came into our thinking. We've got another guy, Lockie Jones, who's part of our NGA as well, who we've got capable of picking up next year. So, both of those guys at the moment, our recruiting staff are projecting out, and you're probably the top 25 to 30 of next year's draft. So, happy to do the deal that we did to ensure that both Jackson gets to our club and also we position ourselves well for next year's draft.
Do you need a ruckman late? Only asked because you've lost Paddy Ryder. You brought Wally Buzzer through the door as well. Is that a need? Billy Frampton goes across town?
Probably not. I mean, someone like Billy, we saw as a key forward more than a ruck. Really happy with Pete Laddam's development last year, and we've also got Sam Hayes, who I've got some real high hopes for. So a guy that you would have known really well. All Australian ruckman 2 years in a row at under 18 level. We were really surprised that he slipped through to pick 46 or whatever it was. So. No, we think, with those guys developing that, and obviously with Scott Lysett, that we're pretty well stocked at that top level ruck division.
With those 3 picks in the first round, do you look for a different mix of players there, or do you take 3 key defenders if they're the best players on your board? Or say you take a key defender with pick 12, do you then look at a different type of player later on in the draft? How much does each pick change what you do with later picks?
Well, it certainly does. I mean, I think it's unlikely that we take 3 key defenders, put it that way. We'll contemplate. Well, as you say, if we take a key defender at that second pick, well, what is it that we need with our third or even the first one? You don't want to end up with 3 of the same type. Certainly in an area where we feel like we're pretty well stocked. You mentioned Dukes obviously going earlier on, but we're comfortable with that happening based on what we've actually got at the moment. So, I think that we'll have a variety. Our challenge last year was in the forward half of the ground, so that's something that we want to contemplate as well.
Everyone loves father-son picks, Chris, and we've spoken about Jackson Mead and Taj Schofield for next year, but you might also get another one on board in the next couple of days, most likely Friday by the sounds. But you've nominated Trent Burgoyne as a father-son rookie, so that means you can automatically list him if he goes through the national draft undrafted. Tell us about Trent, because to be honest, we haven't seen much of him over here, and probably you guys haven't seen too much of him either through injury.
No, I mean, look, we were somewhat fortunate in the sense that we got to see Trent's rehabilitation. That's probably as much as we saw of Trent this year. He had a lot of hamstring trouble, and so was the AFL allowed us to help to manage his rehabilitation, but didn't play too many games. So, but an outside type, like his father Pete, was a real ability to run, can use a footy pretty well. So we'll just have to wait and see how the draft unfolds. But if he gets through to the rookie draft, then obviously he goes straight onto our list.
It's a really strong midfield group. Travis Boak obviously went back in there last year and had a really good season in 2019. You got Wines, Powell Pepper, Rockcliffe that can go through there. Do you need a bit more speed through the midfield, do you think?
I think that's something that the balance of our midfield is something that the coaches are going to have to address, no doubt, and we can help that by adding talent onto the list in that area. So, I think that at various points in time we've probably looked like we were one paced. As I say, the coaches are going to have to work out firstly the way they select their team, and then obviously we can help them today by who we actually get onto our list.
Just going back to last year's draft, Riley and Cal love Xavier Dersma.
Love
the
it.
Star Wars. I can't get my head around Star Wars, but they love it. He's always talking about it. Talk us about Xavier and this position 12 months ago and how closely you're watching him throughout the draft, because there's a few clubs with an eye on him. Adelaide were keen. That's before they did that deal with the Blues for the Stocker situation. How closely were you watching Xavier through the draft last year and excited to get him when he was still available?
I mean, we were rapt to get him. Obviously, he was pretty high up on our board, and we spoke about the potential to trade out if someone like Xavier wasn't there at our pick last year. You mentioned Star Wars. He's the type of young lad who is just so comfortable in his own skin, and it's fantastic to see someone who's willing to, be a little bit different at various points in time. I've no doubt that he's got some real leadership potential. It was probably a bit much when he got the lightsaber out one of our training sessions. But
Wait, so he actually brought the lightsaber in?
he's got a lightsaber, I know that, and more than willing, as I understand it, to talk you two blokes through it if you ever want to see it.
We're going to have to, I think. We saw that as well last year with the celebration. How much did you love seeing that from your position? I mean, I personally love a bit of personality in the game, and he brought that at different stages of that year. It must be hard for a first-year player to be able to show who they are in their first season in senior footy.
Look, I thought it was great, obviously, and our people love it, which is fantastic as well. And we encourage Xavier to continue to be himself, as we have throughout the whole time. You talk about the Star Wars stuff. Xavier Dersmer is just a person who is comfortable in his own skin, happy to do whatever he can to bring some energy into the team. Did that fantastically well throughout last year, and but we want to, we all ask for personality, don't we? We all want to see what is behind the footballer. So I think we've got to encourage those guys to be themselves as much as they can. If that means Xavier continues to do the arrow, well, fantastic. And you've seen over the off season, it's got a bit bigger in South Australia as well. So I reckon next year at Adelaide Oval we'll see a bit more of it.
Connor Rozee's been a fan favourite already too. About a year ago, this time, you were weighing up whether to take him or Ben King. I think if Max King had got through, you probably would have taken him at pick 5 as well. Tell us about Connor and what your expectations are for him next year. I think he mentioned that he wouldn't mind playing some more time up the ground. Everyone wants to play more time in the midfield, but what's your sort of take on that?
Well, I think, first and foremost, we were wrapped with what Connor brought to us last year. Again, you talk about energy in those three, with Zach Butters as well, but it has shown without a doubt that he's one of the competition's best smaller forwards already. I don't think there's any doubt that he's got the capability of going through the midfield. So, part of what we do tonight will obviously help to dictate whether or not Connor spends more time in the midfield next year or not. But I don't think there's any doubt that once Connor fills out, gets a bit more of a tank, that he'll probably move into the midfield for our club. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Chris, we really appreciate you coming on Draft Night Countdown. Good luck tonight with your first 3 picks.
No worries, thank you.